everything hopefully working. Let's first of all make sure we give Marijke a big warm welcome. Yes.
I think, do I have sound now? First of all, I have just recovered my voice after illness. I will be coughing a lot. I will try not to upset the microphone. So if I'm making a lot of coughing sounds. It's me, sadly. Well, fun to be here again. I was here last year as well, but that was Uncle Danny's plots. I cannot pronounce any Danish whatsoever. And we have lost our, what's it called again? Our display. I actually can improvise most of this presentation, but I do have some example code in the end, which this might be a problem. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. I can actually do this by hand, which is cool because I have actually not prepared this presentation as much as I wanted to due to illness. Well, these people figured out, I'd like to know who is in the house, and for that I want to have a little example and kind of, we are going to raise hands after a bit, so be prepared to engage. Imagine this story. Imagine that you are working on a project with someone else, and that someone else, they gave you a pull request or a merge request if you're a GitLab user, and it's actually quite okay. Like the unit tests, they pass, which is good. It works, but there's some small things that aren't really great, like documentation is missing, or it's doing some things that could have been simpler, better, more efficient. Maybe you're logging. Well, I don't know if anyone knows this, but you are not supposed to use direct string interpolation in logging functions. I didn't know that until a while ago, but maybe you knew. Well, maybe they're doing that kind of things, and actually the string interpolation thing will mess up all your error patterns in like Sentry and whatnot. So it's good, but it's not really there yet. So you kind of want them to improve it a bit, but it's their day off tomorrow. We're going to pretend it's a Friday and that we're shipping on Friday. There are reasons why you shouldn't, but for the sake of this example, we are shipping this on Friday. But Friday is the developer's day off. So we have some options. We can mess with the pull request ourselves, who would do that? Raise your hand if you would do that, mess with the other person's pull request to fix it. Good, you shouldn't. Oh well, I say that and then people are like, yay, it's me. I have at times actually done this. I try to avoid it, but if I know that I'll be merging it right after, it's okay, and I will probably tell that person. But then there's two scenarios, and I want to know which one of the two you would pick. We have scenario 1, which is ship it now and fix it later. Who would do that? Yes, I also call it ship it now, regret it later. So the other scenario, I saw 2 hands. The other scenario is regret it now, but don't ship it and wait for a couple of days and upset sales. Who would do that? Somewhat more hands. Yeah, salespeople hate this one simple trick. Although it's for the example, it's Friday, you probably shouldn't ship it unless you have a good reason to do it. So, but my example, it kind of focuses on like I said, the code works, but it's not really there yet. And I hate those fixes. I hate giving people requests back on such simple side things. But you need it for keeping the quality up. And I am going to tell you today how to automate some of those things, because we are developers and automation is making us happy. Yeah, can we get some? Okay, I see very hard nods. Yeah, automation is good. We are very much morning people here, I can see it. So first, something about me. Well, I still have my voice. This is me. This is not my office. It is my backyard. Very Danish teapot. I freaking love that thing. I have 3 of them now. They are amazing. Like, please people who produce this pay me to advertise this thing for you because they're freaking expensive. This is my backyard. We actually have Wi-Fi in the backyard, which is really cool. Well, my name is Marijke, and a lot of people have no clue how to pronounce that outside of the Germanic languages. So I've had always to tell them, you sort of pronounce it like Marijke, and that escalated to this now being my company name. I'm a freelancer. I started a few months ago. I actually still need work, so I have calling cards if you need it. Come and pick them up later. These are my debugging tools, and for the people who cannot see the screen, it's two, what they're called, rubber duckies. There's one, he's green. He kind of looks like a dragon. Officially, it's apparently a dinosaur. Everyone calls it a dragon. And the other one is a mix between a snail. It has like a snail house on its back, and well, it's cool. Uwis, I know you're watching on the live stream. You love these things, so enjoy. Yeah, what's that? And we all had that excellent talk by Joe a bit ago. I actually know that I'll have to remove some while statements from a couple of tests. Thank you, Joe. Now I have to fix my tests. There's a lot of, these are all kinds of, this is just a bunch of like Python tools that we use. It's not even the Django tools. I mean, Willem is here with Colo. If you haven't checked it out yet, it's awesome. But this is just Python stuff, and we are probably going to ignore most of that, and we are going to focus on some quality tools, rough, black, and isort. And we are going to run it on pre-commit, not because I like pre-commit, I do like it, but there's reasons why I don't like to promote it. But it's the quickest thing that we can use right now to run it. So we're just going to ignore most of this, but I wanted to make a graph because graphs are cool, and it looks like I prepared this talk really well, and you know, that's the real reason. So a bit more about the why. I love consistency. Consistency is absolutely my favorite word in programming because it makes code easier to ship and share, and I actually have a slide for that. And also, the automated part is, don't make me think. A lot of tools like Black and isort, you can use them to fix the code for you, which means that you can just write the weirdest, we get demonetized if I curse, right? Yeah, the weirdest code ever. I have to really try not to get us demonetized because I love cussing. Fingers crossed. Plus, my beloved, my students, some of my students, I work in a school 1 day a week, they are watching, and I have to set an example, which is really hard, by the way. But yeah, automating, it's kind of, don't make me think like you can write weird things that are not really up to code, and then the tool is like, yeah, we're not doing that. And then either it fixes it for you, or it gives you this hint of how to fix it. Rough is more in the latter, so. We love automation, which is why there's a ta-da here. But for me, the very best thing is I could actually focus on just the functional part of merge requests. Like when I got a merge request from a junior, for example, like I love training juniors, for those who've seen my last year's talk. I knew that all the basic things like documentation and just some simple things, they had been taken care of. So I just knew that I had to look at how they did whatever they did. And the fun thing is actually, spoiler alert, when I put these tools that I'm showing you in my project with one of my juniors, he was mad at me for 2 weeks, especially since it was quite a young project, but we had to fix like 300 bits of code documentation. I can tell you that that sucks. I love documentation, that's why I usually write it at the start when you write code, but we had to fix like over 300 strings anyway. God, he was mad. But after 2 weeks, he was like, hey, Marijke, how can I put this in my project? I was like, yeah, 2 weeks it took me. And actually, I sold it to like my previous employer. We actually had a 2-day where we put all the stuff that I'm showing you, or a slightly older configuration, into their existing projects. And in the end, I think they even started to like it, which is, you know, one of my prouder moments. I have no clue what my next slide is because I don't have presenter mode on here now. Preparation, that's actually important. I'm going to focus a bit more on how to get this whole thing done, because everyone can read the documentation of all these tools and they're pretty excellent, so I'm just not going to explain that in very much depth. I do have some example code. I made the repository public a while ago. If anyone needs the link, I will show you, or just find my name on GitLab. The actual username is a bit, will also get us demonetized when pronounced in English on GitLab, so just ask me later. Oh well, it's an M and an H and an L and a U and a T. Don't pronounce it on stream. So I'm just going to do some findings on how to get this done. The entire stack that I'm going to show you, which you don't actually have to do all at once, I've had results within 4 hours. I've had them in 2 days with bigger projects. This is a bit of a guesstimate. As we all know, estimations are, they're guesses. That's why guesstimate, not estimate. And if you add black, you're going to touch the entire code base, which is also exactly why most projects don't want to do this. But if you do it, and I can highly recommend it, because it's like 1 or 2 days of drama, and after that, years of bliss. It's worth it, in my opinion, but also for the reasons I previously mentioned. The quickest way is to get rid of everything that is not strictly necessary in terms of branches and merge requests in this project. So what I did is I would just ask the sprint planning to kind of reduce the number of tickets on the project. Of course, this is a bit harder when it's your core project. Okay, there's my voice going. But just try to remove as many stale branches as possible, merge as many things as possible. Actually, this whole process might start 1 or 2 sprints in advance, but just work towards it. It's not strictly necessary, but it saves you a lot of rebasing and misery if you close everything first. And everything that's not strictly critical for that sprint, just either plan at the end of the sprint, like after the whole refactor, or just, try to avoid it. Again, it's not necessary, but you will thank me later if you clear the field first. I miss my clicker, but last year I started using it as a fidget toy, so I'm just walking around now. The tools, actually, there are some things that I don't like about this tool, especially the line length settings. I've had to, I think, define line length in like 4 places in the same file, which if anyone has a solution for that later, I'll happily take it. But the most important thing with the tools is if you run them, make sure that everything runs on the same Python major version, so use it in the same VN, or Tox is great. I love Tox, like that's like its own presentation in itself, so I'm purposely not using it in this presentation, but Tox is awesome, like wow. And then you plunk it into your CI and it's even more awesome. But anyway, just make sure that each tool you used on the same directories, used in the same Python version, like you would always do. And they all need to use the same line length. Like I said, I had to define it in like 3 or 4 places. There must be an easier way. I haven't found it yet. And there's 2 types of line length. There is the code line length and the documentation line length. The only tool that actually has this support for the doc length is rough, or like one PyDoc style branch of rough. This number, like 79, is the standard library rules for line length. PEP8 is like, they kind of want you to stick around 79. Black by default takes 88, and PEP8 again, our like code standard. It's like, well, you can stretch it to 80 or to 100 if you want to. I used to use 120, which is actually the PHP standard, but I recently switched back to 100, and it's actually pretty nice. So, or 99 actually, because my ruler is at 100, and I like to stay 1 character to the left of it. So actually, I have my rulers on 73 and 100 characters, and then go to 172. Well, you'll see it in the documentation in the code later. And for the love of God, just run the standard version first, or like maybe black just with the line length override. Because if you are starting to configure the whole thing without actually running the vanilla application first, you're going to get overwhelmed. My voice is still working, but like just first use black on source, and or like with only the line length, and just keep it simple. And for black and iSort, it's doable. Rough, if you start adding things to rough right in the beginning, you're going to end up with, I think my record was like 2,200 issues that rough wanted me to fix, and that was after I disabled the documentation rules. Yeah, we're not doing that. Actually, rough in legacy projects, I would actually disable it most of the time, or just try and get something done. You get varying results depending on how old a project is, but it's very interesting to just try it anyway. So how are we doing this? Like I said, we run the basic configuration first. And how I do it, I just sort of run it first, and then usually I just git reset the whole thing and just tweak with some settings. And once I'm happy, I commit the configuration separately, for just the simple reason that cherry picking is really easy. Like if you have a couple feature branches that really could not have been fixed earlier, you can cherry pick those configurations and run them on the new code. It's a bit more of a hassle, but it works. It's sort of a workaround to like getting multiple branches up to date. Like if you can avoid it, again, avoid it. But you know, cherry picking, yay. After that, I immediately commit the code itself. And this is where other people can start rebasing their code onto yours. Usually it goes without a hassle if their like change logs are really small, but you know, it also depends on how good people are with rebases and merges. And some people really make a bit of a mess of it. It kind of helps if you, as the person who made like the configuration, is sort of sitting next to the other person who's trying to make your changes into their branch. And after that, you can sort of expand the configuration if needed. And then, of course, commit that as well. For black, that's not really necessary. iSort, you can tweak it. Actually, iSort might even not be necessary if you just like the vanilla settings, because you can run... Because black also does a little bit of import sorting, but I like extra settings. And once it's done, that's when you start copy-pasting it to other projects. Because once you have a good configuration, don't let it go. Some people will actually put this in a cookie cutter. Cookie cutters are pretty awesome. I have noticed, though, that every company that starts out with a fancy cookie cutter eventually abandons it. Yeah, I hear some giggles in the front. But if you use a cookie cutter and you actually keep it up to date, just put the config in there, and then people can take it from there. This is a process, like I said. I have done it in 4 hours. I've done it in 2 days. I can do it in 4 hours, but people who do it for the first time need a bit more time. But it's absolutely worth it in the coming years to like always have this uniform styling and just not really having to bother anymore. Well, the good thing is I actually wanted to do like these fancy slides in between the live demo. We are just going to show you some code. Oh, one disclaimer, by the way, I'm talking about rough here, which is not Flake 8, but it is a sort of reinvention of Flake 8 in Rust, which means it's smaller, and which means it has more maintainers, which I think is one of the best things. Like, both things are really good. And like I said, I made some example code, which is this. I'm actually maybe not even going to run it because I made it before and after. I don't know which one of you have ever used black, but black has a couple really cool things, like they will enforce single quotes, which I have no clue where they are. I thought they had them at the top. I actually made this, and like I said, this is now public on my GitLab thing, and every change in here I have added a comment to see what it does. But just to be really quick about it, I, by the way, also have a make file to run this. By the way, I have no clue how make files work. I had a colleague who said makefile is like, syntax is like an assault to humanity. I agree. But if anyone can ever make a presentation that makes me understand makefiles, please make it. But anyway, it has a run example 1, run example 2, even has a little readme. So you can run these yourself. But like if you have this very, very long list, like black, I think I have, this is, first line is my documentation line, second line is the AT line, and I think I have it set to this particular line. I also have a lot of like extensions for black and rough in here, so actually rough here is already complaining, oh yeah, line too long, whatever. Rough doesn't actually need to have an opinion on this because black will fix this for me. And the only thing you have to do is, I'm here, I'm in my, there's a source directory here. I just have to run from my VM black and then the source directory where I put it. So this one in example. No, wait, this one. And it goes like, yay, one file reformatted. And it goes, well, you can see in the sidebar that it's changed a lot of things. Like without effort. And of course there are some other issues, but that's rough. This is awesome, like single effort changes. And I also have one for iSort. By the way, everything here lives in pyproject.config. iSort by default just sorts stuff in a particular way. I have made some changes here to incorporate it with black. Read this, like seriously, read this. This is too much effort for me to explain right now. But you can, it's really cool if you tell it like, oh, I have a source directory, then it will make sure that every item in that source directory is set to be a first package, first party package. I shall run iSort from here because that is also an option, sort imports. What it does is, I have told it in the configuration to treat Django separately. So what you're looking at here is, normally it has like sections, and I've added Django and Django Extra because I kind of like having these as separate sections, which is what you're seeing here. Django is separate, this is separate. I have a hello world in as a first package that I put at the bottom. It's pretty cool. You don't need this, black does some of this for you, but if you want to have extra sections and shit, sorry, demonetization, then look at it. Again, look at the example, and then one more. I have some rough things. Rough has a lot of things, like literally, if you look at the rules that rough had, these are all packages. It's so much. You can enable them all, like this is. I've actually scrolled through every one of this. There is so much to do here. It's ridiculous. Look for this. Fun fact is, in the pyproject.toml, I've actually added links to all this, so you can see it. And you can. I have enabled a couple, and I did some like exclusions because Django does some things that rough does not like. Again, just look through it later. But I will show you a couple really quick, and then we're done. Yes, rough. Rough, for example, I told you about the f-string thing in formatting and logging functions. So now it's complaining to me, oh yeah, you're not allowed to use this string interpolation thing in here. It actually wants me to do, I think, world, and then this has to be, I think it's like this. I think it will stop complaining if I do this, but oh, it's like, oh yeah, you have an f string without placeholders. Ha! Now it's happy. And of course this doesn't exist. Well, this is really fun. This is actually really handy if you have this rough checker in your IDE. Well, this one is complaining about a lack of documentation. Simplify this loop. This one is actually really fun. It tells you like, this thing does return true in a loop, and it just tells you, oh, you can use any. And for this one, this is really cool, it has a fix. So if I do rough blah 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 with -- fix as a flag, wow, one fixed. Yay. It did it for me. Of course, never use magic numbers. It's actually also complaining about, Ruff is complaining about everything. It's amazing. So you don't have to think anymore. You know how cool this is when you're training juniors and this just saves like half my time reviewing people. Well, of course I think it only does like E and W warnings by default, but I've enabled so many and even more. Like you can see I enabled. This is the entire list. I actually recommend just adding a comment to remember what everything is, because otherwise you will have no clue what everything is. Again, just read it after. If you can't find the link, I'll send it to you, or I'll put it on Fostodon. I think it's actually, if you just go to, of course I cannot, it's this one. If you just find my name on GitLab, I don't have a lot of things public, so it's called Quality Tools Demo, you'll find it. A quick Google away. Well, I hope my voice did not upset you too much, because it does upset me. So sorry about that. I've been eating paracetamol and cough drops for the last 2 weeks, but I made it. I'm very happy. And I hope you learned something today. I hope we still have room for some questions. I don't know. But we have room. Oh, someone gets...
There's a lot of questions.
In my defense, I started a bit later.
Yes, thank you.
God, I need a lot of water right now.
We do compensate for a little bit of technical issues, so I think we can take those questions.
Hello, thank you for your presentation.
Yes.
So for me this morning, Ruff is a discovery. So if I follow you correctly, if we move for Ruff, we can bypass Flake. So we can install Blake plus Ruff instead of Blake plus Flake 8.
Well, I used to use a lot of Flake 8. Ruff is just newer, which also means it's a bit more experimental. So some people like it already, some don't. It's just faster than Flake 8. Plus, it has, I think, a bit more maintainers. It's actually interchangeable. There's also a few things in the Flake 8 configuration that doesn't yet work in Ruff. They put it on their website, Ruff. They made a little tool where you can just put in your like Flake 8 configuration, and it rolls out like the Ruff version. And I lost like 2 or 3 settings. I can't remember which. Just see if it works for you. Like if it doesn't work for you yet, try again in a few months and just use Flake 8. But this is Rust. It's faster. And it's just one package, except like for Flake 8, for every check you have to add another Python package. So you end up with a lot of dependencies. And I kind of just like that Ruff is just pip install Ruff and it works, you know. So, but they are kind of interchangeable right now, but Ruff is getting better than Flake 8. It's just, it's continuously improving at the moment.
I saw another question. Is it still? Okay.
Another one.
It's going to be a follow-up question. In my daily life, what I do is I apply formatting and linter right when I save each time. So I never process as you do. Have all the code processed and then apply them through command line, etc., or with pre-commit. What would be your recommendation?
I don't like formatting on save, because I have a thing where I press command save like every few seconds, which means that my IDE at some point is like, yeah, can you please stop formatting now? But just enable it whenever, and usually your tools, they just take the configuration files. Like this is a PyProject.toml that I used. Your IDE tools will also read that configuration. So like I said, I have it in active mode in pre-commit. When I commit, it just I just realized I completely skipped pre-commit, which is awesome. But I have an active mode in pre-commit that sort of disables my commits if they're not adhering to the standards. I have a check mode that's just like a true-false check in Tox, which also runs in my CI. I have the IDE that does all the little, like the real lines that tells me that things are wrong. And you'll use the same configuration, just like whatever works for you. But I like the pre-commit one because it actively fixes stuff. And for all the people who disable pre-commit, because you can do that, I just have the CI running as well. That's sort of for all the smart asses who think they can avoid my checks. I have it in CI as well and just sort of disable. It just tells you, oh yeah, no, this merge request is faulty now. But actually, the CI should never fail if you use pre-commit and the local tools. But use whatever you like.
Just realised I did have another question. Near the beginning, you mentioned make sure you're running the same major version of Python with everything across. I mean, we've got multiple projects. They're running on different versions of Python. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, in the same project, I should have clarified that. You always use the same like version of the tools as you use in that project. So it could be different VMs per project, but more like some rules are Python specific. So it kind of helps to have like, if your entire project is Python 3.10, just use 3.10 for the tools as well, or just pick the latest version if you support multiple Python versions, because some versions of Python have different needs than others. So, and sometimes the rules can be different. I have no example for you yet, but like I said, just use the same Python version for that project and for the tools and all that.
Big hand for Marijke.